At bbcworldservice.com, The Inquiry.
I'm Charmaine Cozier. It's thought 1 billion people around the world live with bouts of blurred vision, slurred speech and intense pain. New treatments for that disorder are raising hopes. Is this a turning point for migraine medication?
This is the BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
BBC World Service, this is Sean Lay with The Real Story. One topic, 1 hour every week. And this week, some call Geert Wilders the Dutch Donald Trump. Having campaigned against Islam on the fringe of politics for 20 years, it'd be more accurate to call Mr. Trump the American Geert Wilders. Last week, Mr. Wilders was catapulted centre stage by a general election result which gave his party almost a quarter of the vote. He's not alone. Populists from the right say success in the Netherlands, a socially tolerant country at the heart of efforts to build a common Europe, demonstrates that the future belongs to politicians willing to say, my country comes first. Nationalists and populist-league governments in Italy and Hungary, in Denmark, they're even influencing the politics of the centre-left. Is migration alone driving this, or have European voters decided the post-war model of ever-closer union is no longer for them? That's The Real Story from the BBC, coming up after the news.
I'm Debbie Russ with the BBC News. Hello. Israel has resumed combat operations in Gaza after a temporary truce with Hamas that lasted 7 days. The two sides have blamed each other for the resumption of fighting. Our correspondent, Rushdie Abu-Alouf, has been following events in Gaza.
They were hearing huge explosions and seeing black smoke coming out of buildings. People were looking under the rubble of some of the building. About 32 people were killed so far, and people are deeply concerned about resuming the fight, and they believe that the Israelis might go into some sort of operation in the south. What if the Israelis are now decided to expand the operation to the south? What's going to happen to those 1.8 million people? Most of them are displaced from the north, and most of them, they were not allowed to go back to the north even during the 7 days of the ceasefire.
The UN Children's Agency has repeated its call for an urgent ceasefire to prevent a humanitarian catastrophe. A UNICEF spokesman in southern Gaza, James Elder, described the renewed hostilities as terrifying. He explained what he'd seen since the ceasefire ended.
I went immediately to Nasser Hospital. Nasser Hospital is the biggest still functioning hospital in Gaza. It's already at 200% capacity. It is strewn with children with the wounds of war and children recovering, children who've got amputations. As I entered the hospital, there was a hit maybe 70 metres from the hospital. So after that, ambulances, people with stretchers, people again coming in as the war on children seems to have recommenced.
United Nations Secretary-General has issued a stark warning about the danger posed by climate change unless more radical action is taken to stop it. Antonio Guterres was speaking on the second day of the COP28 summit in Dubai. He said recent droughts and forest fires showed that the Earth's vital signs were failing. The comments were echoed by Britain's King Charles.
The dangers are no longer distant risks. I have seen across the Commonwealth and beyond countless communities which are unable to withstand repeated shocks, whose lives and livelihoods are laid waste by climate change. Surely, real action is required to stem the growing toll of its most vulnerable victim.
An author whose book renewed allegations of racism within the British monarchy has insisted the naming of two royal family members was not a publicity stunt. A Dutch version of the book Endgame identified King Charles and Catherine, Princess of Wales, as the pair at the centre of the row. They're alleged to have asked about the skin colour of the first son of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Buckingham Palace says it's considering all options. World News from the BBC. The jailed Russian opposition figure Alexei Navalny says he's been informed by the authorities of yet more criminal charges against him. The prominent Kremlin critic is already serving sentences totaling more than 30 years. Mr. Navalny says he's now been charged under an article of Russia's penal code that covers vandalism. He said the authorities were issuing new criminal charges against him every 3 months. Mr. Navalny has spent the last year in solitary confinement at a penal colony. 120 Malaysians suspected of being victims of job scams in Myanmar have been repatriated. Their plight was revealed when fighting broke out between ethnic militants and the Burmese army in the area where they were working. Vicky Bristow has more details.
It appears these Malaysians were lured to Myanmar by the promise of good jobs, high-paying jobs. Lots of countries have high youth unemployment. They arrive in Myanmar and then find that actually these jobs don't exist, and then they're forced, this is what's suspected, they're forced by criminal gangs to essentially defraud people by telephoning them on, contacting them using the internet, defraud them of lots and lots of money.
A district court in the US state of Montana has blocked a statewide ban on the TikTok app from coming into effect at the start of January. The judge ruled that the proposed restrictions infringed the constitutional rights of both users and businesses and was an overreach of state power. An experimental nuclear fusion reactor that could help develop a new energy source has officially begun operating in Japan. The device has been built in collaboration with the European Union. More than 500 scientists and 70 companies are involved in the project, based in a hangar north of Tokyo. Nuclear power plants operate by splitting atoms apart. In fusion, they're joined together, has the potential to produce massive amounts of carbon-free energy. BBC News.
This is The Real Story from the BBC. I'm Sean Lay with your weekly exploration of a story that's making news and changing lives. And this week, Geert Wilders, the man described as the Dutch Donald Trump, has pulled off a surprise election victory in the Netherlands. On the political fringe for years, he could now be the next Prime Minister. In the past, he's called for a ban on mosques and on the Quran, but he insists he's no extremist.
I don't subscribe to myself as being far right, as you call me all the time. It's people that feel that the indigenous people are being ignored because of the mass immigration that we had. They feel mistreated, forgotten in a way. And I said, well, the Netherlands, people first now.
Right-wing populists across Europe have rushed to congratulate him, but in the Netherlands the result has divided opinion. Dutch Muslims are anxious. This man, for one, doesn't believe the less abrasive tone struck by Geert Wilders during the election campaign will be the approach he adopts in power.
If he says no, well, it's to me this time it's not about Muslims, it's not about Islam. It's a fake story because 20 years he's already in politics. And the only thing that he was always saying is we have to ban everything what is of Muslims, for Muslims, by Muslims.
But there have been setbacks for populists on the right. In October, Poland's election result put the pro-EU centrist Donald Tusk in charge of negotiations for a new coalition which he hopes will push the right out of power.
Just 3 months ago, we weren't certain. Even yesterday, people came to me and asked, "Can you really do it?" But today, we can already say this is the end of the bad times. This is the end of the law and justice government.
Europe's far right, though, believe their views have now become more mainstream. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán says Geert Wilders' win heralds a wind of change in Europe. Orbán himself has called for a curb on migration into his country.
Brüsszel a Sorosféle csapatokkal kiegészülve.
The internationalist left has a ruse that Europe is inherently inhabited by mixed-race peoples. We in the Carpathian Basin are not a mixed race, but quite simply a mix of peoples living in their own European homelands. We are willing to mix with each other, but we do not want to become a mixed race.
What's driving right-wing populism in Europe, and what does it mean for the continent's future? Well, we're going to look both at the specifics of what happened in last week's general election in the Netherlands and to what extent the victory of the PVV, the Party of Freedom, reflects wider trends across Europe. To help us do that, this week's panel are Catherine Fieschi, a comparative political analyst specialising in populism, far-right and authoritarian politics, and a fellow at the Robert Schuman Centre at the European University Institute in Florence. Catherine joins us from Paris. Stanley Pignal is The Economist's Brussels bureau chief and writes their Charlemagne column on Europe. He joins us from Brussels. And Sanne van Osten is a political scientist at the University of Oxford Centre on Migration Policy and Society, and she's joining us from the British city of Oxford. Welcome to you all. Catherine Fieschi, first, can we start with some definitions? Is there a difference between right-wing populism and a party of the far right?
Yes, I think there is a difference between the two. And I would argue that the people that we call far right are people who really fundamentally are authoritarian and don't actually believe in any kind of representative institutions or any kind of democratic institutions. Fundamentally, what they want is a hierarchical society and an obedient society. What we have with populist parties, though, is harder to get a grip on because fundamentally what they are is just a terrible version of democracy. They are a democracy that is oppressive because it boils down to the will of the majority. And generally, that majority is, as we heard Geert Wilders say in the introduction, the indigenous majority. So populists, go by elections, and then they kind of put in place a sort of government that is oppressive to minorities, exclusive, and also that is highly, highly critical of technocratic elites.
Sanne van Osten, you're from the Netherlands. In which category would you put Geert Wilders' party, the PVV, yourself?
He's really both. He's populist in the sense that he questions elites. He also makes a strong division between the people and the elites. So in that sense, he's very populist. He's also very far right because he doesn't believe in democratic institutions. He
really
he said
just won an election.
Yeah, that's right. I know. He should kind of be a believer by now. But he has a lot of parts of our democracy that he doesn't believe in. He doesn't believe that judges are objective. He wants to change a lot of aspects about the Constitution. I think there's really both.
Stanley Pena, where does this put Mr. Wilders in relation to similar figures in the rest of Europe?
Well, he, for one, he's been around for an awful long time, Wilders. In a sense, he's one of the originals. What's notable now is the degree of success that he's achieved. He has been congratulated from these parties, like Giorgia Meloni, like Marine Le Pen in France. Now, they think broadly alike, but there are important differences between them, and they don't always want to be lumped together as belonging in the same party. So, for example, Giorgia Meloni, who's now been in office for a year and who has kind of moderated herself to stay in office, she doesn't really go along with this kind of Muslim bashing stuff that Wilders does. But Viktor Orban in Hungary will be very, very happy to see Mr. Wilders potentially around the European Council table if Mr. Wilders manages to form a coalition as Prime Minister.
Right, and we're going to focus on the Netherlands for the first half of our hour today. The surge in support, which delivered first place in the Dutch general election to Geert Wilders' party, the PVV, appears to have caught even his team by surprise. Reportedly, the room which served as his party's headquarters on election night was only booked 3 days in advance. The PVV more than doubled its numbers in the Dutch House of Representatives from 17 seats to 37. Almost 1/4 of all votes went to Mr. Wilders' party. The question, though, is how do we make sense of the political earthquake that has put him and his party in first place? And why did it happen in this election when it didn't happen in previous elections? And it's fair to say, isn't it, Sanne van Osten, that this question of more Dutch voters voting for the PVV than for any of the other parties is quite a turnaround from the position just 18 months ago at the time of the last election. So what has changed in that period?
Well, I think Geert Wilders, he's been able to enjoy a perfect storm. I mean, so many elements were pointing in his direction this election. The first important thing to understand is that these weren't planned elections. These were snap elections. Last summer, all of a sudden, there was a cabinet crisis that nobody really saw coming and caught everyone kind of by surprise. And the cabinet, headed by Prime Minister Mark Rutte, all of a sudden had this crisis over family reunification. All of a sudden, the cabinet fell, and this surprise of the cabinet falling all of a sudden very quickly turned into anger towards Mark Rutte. Just really over the course of just a few days, people started seeing Mark Rutte had caused this cabinet crisis over a migration issue because he was up in the polls and he knew that migration issues can get you to win the elections. So he really used it. And when people started seeing this, they started a motion of no confidence. And very quickly, Mark Rutte realized he was going to lose. He was going to be voted out of office, and he quickly resigned. And he said, I'm no longer going to be party leader for my party. I will not be the next prime minister again, but I will be prime minister until the new prime minister. He's been in office for 13 years. He's the longest seated prime minister in Europe. He's the longest that the Netherlands has ever had. Another thing that happened is between 2010 and 2012, Mark Rutte and Geert Wilders, they were in a cabinet together. And then Geert Wilders blew up that cabinet over some issue. And Mark Rutte has been saying ever since 2012, more than 10 years, he's been saying, I will never, ever work with Wilders again. Yep. Now, the new leader of his party right away started getting questions about, hey, would you work with Geert Wilders in a cabinet? And then she said, yes, I would. And since the moment that she said, yes, I would, Wilders has been slowly but steadily rising in the polls.
Catherine Fieschi, how would you describe Geert Wilders?
He certainly is one of these rather mercurial characters. He has been perhaps the most outspokenly, brutally anti-Muslim and anti-Islam leader in Europe. He went out of his way to really upset the apple cart, particularly when he first started off in the 90s and the 2000s. But I think that what we see in him is also something that characterizes a lot of populist leaders, which is that they always have to make this very tough call between staying on the outside, right, and basically being able to criticize the elites and basically have free reign and free speech in terms of whatever they're hurling at their opponents, and actually the draw of power where, you know, they have to step into the arena and actually take some responsibility. And I think that that's what often gives these populist leaders this hard to pin down quality, because there is a real trade-off for them. You know, they can do what they do best when they're on the sidelines rather than on the inside. And in fact, when Sonne said, you know, that he was in cabinet with Rutte, I mean, yes, he was, but he made very sure that he wasn't in coalition. He wanted to stay really a little bit on the outside, and then, as she said, he brought it down. Right. So he's in this very awkward position, and now he has to build a coalition, and he has finally said he really wants to be prime minister. He really wants to govern. But that does come with a trade-off for people like him.
Yeah, and we've seen something of that trade-off, Stanley Pignal, because he's sort of said that the things in his manifesto, which have been in for years about banning the Quran, Islamic schools and mosques, are now on hold. Do you think that's one of the reasons Dutch voters were drawn to the PVV?
Yes, I mean, firstly, I don't think anybody actually believes that he's going to put on hold a lot of the stuff that he's been saying consistently for 20 years. I think voters can see kind of fairly transparently that what Wilders believes, and he really is a man of conviction, for better or for worse. That's going to make it quite difficult for him to build a coalition. Not impossible, but it's going to make it difficult. And to kind of pick up a little bit on what Catherine and Sana were saying, a lot of these parties on the hard right have done these supply deals, confidence and supply deals, where they haven't joined coalitions, but they have sort of tacitly endorsed them and got the votes needed for
just to clarify, what we mean by confidence supply for people who don't know the systems that operate in Europe is basically a promise not to bring you down over things like your budget. So supply the money, vote support you, and support you in votes of confidence.
That's right. So you don't get ministers, and you don't have policies that can be criticized, but you shape the government's agenda. And that has given them, in a sense, these parties to the hard right, the best of both worlds, because they've been able to shape policy, but nobody has been able to pin any sort of failure on them. And those policies exist in large part because there is still this notion in some parts of Europe, it exists in France and Germany and other places, of what's called the cordon sanitaire, this idea that you shouldn't do any kind of deals with the far right. But I think, to my mind, that has given these parties a lot of influence, and it has spared them from scrutiny.
Well, we did ask the PVV for an interview for the programme to try and get a sense of what Mr. Wilders is prepared to compromise on and what his views are, but they told us no one was available. Geert Wilders' successful campaign this time has been notably more circumspect than those of the past. Back in 2016, the BBC's Nuala McGovern spoke to Mr. Wilders. Here's his more typical policy message.
If we want to be liberated, if we want to be a sovereign country again, we need to get rid of this institution that became very multilateral and very political instead of economical how it started.
But why not be inside? Why not try and reform or make change along with the other member nations? I mean, you're going to have to do business with them anyway in some way, shape or form in a globalized world.
If I want to, as a person, or you want to decide in your home who to have as a guest, and when the guest should leave, you are independent to do that. We are not able to do that anymore.
So you're talking about immigration.
I'm talking about immigration. You know, I mean, and I believe that every democracy needs a nation state. Needs a nation state, a country of its own, where people around their own flag can rally and have their own identity. You know, a nation state is exactly what the European Union wants to get rid of.
But, you know, coming here to meet you, even the past couple of hours, as I walk the streets in The Hague, you're not going to be able to turn back the tide of immigration. It is part of the Netherlands now. I mean, it's part of its identity.
I'm not saying that I want to build a wall around the Netherlands, but at least we should be able to decide ourselves from which countries we want immigrants and from which countries we don't want immigrants. It's impossible to do that today without the consent of Brussels.
Say you became Prime Minister, would you cater to your Muslim constituency?
The first thing I would do is not only leave the Netherlands, leave the European Union, but also stop the immigration from Islamic countries, which doesn't mean that the Muslims that are in Holland today should leave. Everybody who is already in my country today, and everybody who adheres and confirms its behavior to our constitution, our law, our rule of law, and our civil society, is welcome to stay and equal as anybody else. But since my party believes, and millions of people who support us today, that Islam and freedom, Islam and democracy are incompatible, indeed, without saying that all Muslims are bad people, we would want to stop the immigration and the import of more people from Islamic countries. We will do that the same day.
Many would say that you use fear and blame for political gain.
No, it's not fair. Listen, if I would be some kind of fearmonger, believe me, we are still one of the most tolerant countries in Europe. My party would have a support of 0.2%. You will find people who hate our guts, but you will find probably more people who support us. We are a very popular party today, and we are not xenophobes or racist or bigots. We are nothing like that. We believe that we should be in charge of our own identity and of our own country again when it comes to Brussels. And when it comes to Islam, we have nothing against Muslims. We believe
it sounds
that Islam,
like you do if you say you don't want anybody from Islamic countries coming to your country. That
because
sounds like
Islam,
you're against Muslims.
No, Islam and democracy, Islam and freedom are totally incompatible.
But people don't even practice in the same way.
No, but look at every country in the world where the Islam is dominant.
You're going to the Republican convention.
Yes.
Why are you going?
I believe that Donald Trump, whatever you might think of him, is the first real leader, I hope, to be in the United States who dares to talk about the issue of immigration, about Islam, about national sovereignty. I think he's very brave to be able and willing to address the issue of the threat of Islam and the threat of more immigration. And to show that support, and I'm very happy and proud to be present there in America.
Have you spoken to him?
Not yet, but I hope to speak to him during the conference.
That's Geert Wilders speaking in 2016 to my colleague Nuala McGovern. Son of Van Osten, at the final weeks of the campaign, that sort of rhetoric and stance was a lot softer, wasn't it? Indeed, it led, I think, some people to joke in the media that he was Geert Milders, not Wilders. Is it the case that contributed, do you think, to his victory in the election? And will he stick to it? Because Stanley clearly thinks he won't.
I think it did contribute to him, but it also really was because he had a lot of personal ambition to become prime minister. I mean, he's been in parliament for 25 years, 17 of which with his own political party. So he had that brief stint of being kind of in a coalition or backing the coalition, not with any ministers, but he's kind of bored. I mean, he wanted to do something new. He's 60 years old now. He wanted to do something new, and he probably really strategically thought about becoming more milder in order to get more votes. I mean, he was more milder in the media, but not in his party program. His party program is as radical as ever.
Okay, but that's the program. He's got elected. His is the largest party. Is it now, do you think, simply a question of time before he can form a government?
It's really hard to tell. And this coalition formation process is one big, dramatic, emotional, political roller coaster. It just goes on, and this is every time. So it's going to be really hard to know, but I think he's in a pretty good spot because he has a coalition in mind of 4 political parties. He's very open about which those 4 political parties are. All 4 political parties are very critical of immigration, and they see eye to eye on a lot of different topics as well. There are other difficulties because his party and the parties that he wants to work with are very unexperienced in executive power.
Geert Wilders was first elected in 1998, but his chances of becoming Prime Minister will depend on complex negotiations between parties as they strive to form a coalition government. Even the prospect would, until recently, have seemed like a pipe dream. Geert Wilders began his political career in the mainstream of Dutch politics, in the party of the outgoing Prime Minister Mark Rutte. When that party decided to support EU accession talks with Turkey in 2004, he quit. That was also the year that the Dutch filmmaker Theo van Gogh, who'd made a short film called Submission, which was critical of Islamic attitudes to women, was murdered on an Amsterdam street as he cycled to work. Stanley Pignal, he was immediately put under police guard. I wonder what impact you think a life under guard in a certain degree of isolation has had on his politics.
It's not going to kind of de-radicalize you, as it were. Geert Wilders, I think, lives under a very genuine threat. I don't think that's exaggerated, and he has done for an awful long time. Remember, Wilders is a guy who was banned from entering the UK at one point. That's how kind of outside of the mainstream he used to be. What I would say is that now he's far less out of the mainstream than he used to be, and there are many people who sound a lot more like him.
And is that because he's moved, or because politics in general has shifted?
I think politics in general has shifted, particularly on immigration. There are a lot more centrist politicians, including Mark Rutte, the outgoing premier, a man with impeccable liberal credentials, who have sounded very, very tough on immigration, in part because they think it can win them votes, but also because, in the aftermath of a big surge in migration in Europe in 2015, 2016, the public mood has shifted quite markedly as well.
Sanne van Oosten. Geert Wilders is well known now for a critique of Islam, but he's not the first Dutch politician to have made a name for himself that way. Pim Fortuyn was a right-wing politician murdered in 2002 who'd criticised multiculturalism, immigration and Islam. Did Fortuyn's policies have an impact, do you think, on Geert Wilders and on Dutch politics?
Yeah, I think that he is really walking in Pim Fortuyn's footsteps. Pim Fortuyn came up in 2002, and he really caught the political establishment in the Netherlands by surprise, and he was immensely popular. He came into parliament with 26 seats, but I believe it was 10 days before the elections, he was murdered right before entering a TV studio, and it put the country upside down. And then a lot of people still voted for him anyway, or voted for it because of the murder that happened. And then it was a pretty big political party, but all of the politicians were fighting all the time, and it was one big drama. And then, of course, the cabinet fell. There's a lot of cabinets falling in our country, and that was the end of the Lijst Pim Fortuyn LPF.
I think Fortuyn is. I think Fortuyn, if I may, was a really important political figure because he legitimized the idea of liberal Islamophobia. His argument was that Islam threatened gay rights in the Netherlands. He was gay. His claim was, we cannot live our liberal lifestyle and have a lot of immigration. And in that way, he's, insofar as Wilders is a political descendant of Fortuyn, which to some extent he is very, very different to a Viktor Orban or a Meloni, who are also very conservative and very not keen on the LGBT agenda, as they would call it. Whereas the hard right in the Netherlands, at least in the past, would claim, we are anti-immigration because we want to preserve the rights of people to be different, to be gay, and so on. So it's a very, very different point of view in a way.
And that whole question is something that is informing the debate right across Europe. In the next half hour, we're going to zoom out from the Netherlands to look across the continent and examine what's happening to both populist parties and the far right with our panel. Catherine Fieschi is a comparative political analyst specialising in populism, far right and authoritarian politics, and a fellow at the Robert Schuman Centre at the European University Institute in Florence. Stanley Pignal, the Economist Brussels Bureau Chief, who writes their weekly Charlemagne column on Europe. And Sanne van Oosten, who is a political scientist at the University of Oxford Centre on Migration, Policy and Society. They'll be back with me right after the news when The Real Story continues.
This is the BBC World Service. examining how guns and gangs shattered Sweden's peaceful reputation.
In less than a decade, Sweden has gone from having one of the lowest rates of gun violence in Europe to one of the highest.
A lot of it is linked to rows between different gangs selling drugs or gangs who split up, and it's often shoot to kill, not like it was back in my day.
I'm Maddie Savage, a journalist living and working in Stockholm.
And I am Nikwi John, a former gang member turned criminologist.
We're meeting some of the communities affected by gang crime, digging deeper into what's behind the trends, and looking at how Sweden is trying to tackle the problem.
Younger and younger children are getting drawn into this.
They're pulling triggers age 13 and 14.
Sweden, living with guns and gangs. Tuesday at 9:30 and 20 GMT. Or listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
Coming up on The Real Story in the next half hour, could the Netherlands, like Hungary and Italy, soon have a politician of the populist right as Prime Minister? Geert Wilders, a veteran politician whose anti-Islam rhetoric placed him for years on the fringe of politics, was the winner of November's general election. Is the success of the populist right only a reaction to migration pressures, or have Europe's voters had enough of ever closer union? That's after a summary of the news.
BBC News with Debbie Russ. War has returned to the Gaza Strip after a week-long pause in the fighting between Israel and Hamas. Both sides have accused each other of breaching the terms of a temporary ceasefire, which has expired. Hamas health officials say about 30 people have already been killed by Israel's renewed bombardment. The UN Children's Agency has warned of a humanitarian catastrophe unless the truce resumes. A UNICEF spokesman at a hospital in southern Gaza described the situation as terrifying. The head of the UN has told a major climate conference that the Earth's vital signs are failing. Antonio Guterres urged negotiators at COP28 in Dubai to agree new cuts in greenhouse gas emissions. An experimental nuclear fusion reactor has officially begun operating in Japan. The technology hasn't been perfected, but it has the potential to generate huge amounts of carbon-free energy. Buckingham Palace says it's considering all options after a book identified King Charles and his daughter-in-law Catherine, Princess of Wales, as the two royal family members at the centre of renewed racism allegations. The author insists he doesn't know how their names appeared in a Dutch version of his work. 120 Malaysians suspected of being victims of job scams in Myanmar have been repatriated. It's thought they'd been lured to Myanmar with the promise of good jobs, but were then forced to conduct online and telephone fraud for criminal gangs. Soldiers in Guinea-Bissau have freed two government ministers who were being held by police in the capital. Gunfire was heard overnight. The jailed Russian opposition figure Alexei Navalny says he's facing more criminal charges. He's already serving sentences totaling more than 30 years. Mr. Navalny says he's now been charged under an article of the Penal Code that covers vandalism.
You're listening to The Real Story from the BBC World Service with me, Sean Lane. The victory of Geert Wilders with his distinctive dyed blonde hair propels him from the fringes of Dutch politics to the centre stage with a shot at being Prime Minister. But he's not the first populist from the right in Europe winning elections. In this final half hour, we're going to look at whether there is a political tide already washing over the continent and if it's yet reached the high watermark. With this week's Real Story panel. They are Catherine Fieschi, a comparative political analyst specialising in populism, far-right and authoritarian politics, and a fellow at the Robert Schuman Centre at the European University Institute in Florence. She joins us from Paris. Stanley Pignal is the Economist's Brussels bureau chief and writes its Charlemagne column, which appears every week on Europe. He joins us from Brussels. And Sanna van Osten is a political scientist at the University of Oxford Centre on Migration, Policy and Society, and she's joining us from the British city of Oxford. Now, 2 decades ago, there was international outcry when Austria's far-right Freedom Party, led by Jörg Haider, became part of a coalition government. The EU initially imposed diplomatic sanctions against Austria, one of its own members. One Belgian defence minister boycotted a lunch with his Austrian counterpart, remarking, "I don't eat with fascists." In 2023, the picture is rather different. A right-wing populist, Giorgia Meloni, is Prime Minister of Italy. In Hungary, we have Viktor Orban, Prime Minister since 2010, with his particular brand of nationalist populism. And in Finland, the far-right Finns party is now part of the governing coalition. Stanley Pignal from The Economist, it's fair to say, isn't it, that right-wing populists now have a seat at Europe's top table?
They very much do. They very much do, both around the table of the European Council, where leaders sit and where Mr. Wilders might soon sit, but also in coalitions and in national life. Every European election now is a question of, how well will the hard right, the populist right, do. And of course, you have your European elections coming up in June, and that again will be one of the big questions. Can they be kept out of, for example, getting the big European jobs just because they don't mesh well with the centrist liberal parties that have kind of controlled politics really since the end of the Second World War?
Now, in last year, 2022, Giorgia Meloni, Italy's most right-wing prime minister since the Second World War, used her first address to Parliament to deny that her ideology is extreme. Ms Meloni, who is, of course, leader of the Brothers of Italy party, said she condemned undemocratic regimes, including fascist ones.
Non ho mai provato simpatia.
I have never felt any sympathy or closeness to anti-democratic regimes, any regimes, fascism included. In the same way, I have always considered the anti-Semitic racial laws of 1938 the lowest point of Italian history, a shame that will taint our people forever.
Giorgia Meloni speaking last year. Catherine Fieschi, clearly she is very much at pains to distance herself from the pre-war fascists of Mussolini. She's a right-wing populist, but are her politics, now that she's actually in power, more centrist than perhaps people had anticipated they might be?
So I think there's a couple of things about Meloni. One is that she's been very, very clever in reducing Italian fascism to a kind of historical artifact, right? If you put it back, if you put fascism back into its historical box, then de facto, 70 years later, you can't be a fascist, right? And I think that she's done a lot of work on herself and on her party, to carry out that mission of historicizing the whole thing, so it's kind of nothing to do with them. The second thing is that I think that she is more than a populist. I would argue that in many respects she's a conservative or ultra-conservative nationalist. There's not a lot of pandering, if you like, to ordinary people, or a lot of really of condemning of elites. There's much more a kind of nationalist, sovereignist, ultra-conservative ideology at play. And then I think that the final thing that's important here is that Meloni really is still waiting for her chunk of the recovery money from the European Union, and therefore she has to play nice, to put it bluntly, right? One of the reasons why we haven't seen her agitating, especially not on the European scene, as much as one might have expected, is that she knows that she has to walk a very careful line in order to make sure that Italy delivers on this contract, if you like, with the European Union that was in part struck by her predecessor, Mario Draghi, in order to get Italy's share of the recovery package. She desperately needs it. She made some very expensive promises during her election campaign. So I think that that's what keeping her on the straight and narrow. In terms of domestic politics, however, she is ultra-conservative. She refers to God and the family and traditional Christian values an awful lot. But she also really has, in a way, it's a difficult coalition that she's in. But, the fact that she's in coalition with Matteo Salvini, who's so outspoken on migration and immigration and anti-EU, to some extent, it means that she can leave that dirty job to him and she can come across as far more pristine than she possibly is.
Now, in parts of Europe, what we've also seen is centrist or even centre-left governments whose immigration policies appear to be being influenced by more right-wing parties. Take as an example Denmark. In 2021, the European Commission criticised the government in Copenhagen for approving a law to send asylum seekers to camps abroad to be processed. Denmark's immigration minister at the time, Mathias Tesfaye, said that the measure was needed to deter spontaneous migration.
We'd prefer it if the European Commission backed us on this issue, but we can't just sit back and observe the European asylum system, because we think it has actually broken down. It is not fair on our own society. It can't cope with this influx of refugees, and it's not fair on the majority of the world's refugees, who have very little chance of actually getting to Europe. That we spend enormous resources on a small minority who come here, half of whom do not need any protection. We simply have to do it differently. That is why I'm really happy that the Danish Parliament today is voting for this bill, which is a step in the right direction, but we are far from reaching our goal.
Denmark's immigration minister, Mathias Tesfaye, speaking in 2021. He's still in government, incidentally, but he's now Minister for Education in the coalition. Sanne von Osten in Oxford. Is it fair then to say that what we're seeing now is centrist or centre-left governments in Europe also having their immigration policies influenced by right-wing populism?
Yes, it's definitely fair to say. And that's also been going on for much longer. I mean, the Dutch Labour Party has also been very much influenced by the Danish case. And they've also really tried to present themselves as immigration and integration hardliners. But a lot of research has shown that that's actually lost them more voters than that it's gained. And they've kind of stopped doing that. But they're still critical about immigration. And it's really hard to find a political party in the Dutch political system. Even
Hi guys, this is your friend Uruj from SendWave. SendWave is a money transfer app that is used by people all over the world to send money to their loved ones in Africa.
I mean, from
With
left to
SendWave,
right,
you can send money to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the best part is, SendWave is absolutely commission-free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use SendWave? SendWave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store or Google Play Store. The app is free to download. After downloading it, just open the app and enter your name, email, and phone number. That's it. You're good to go. Make sure you use the promo code SR. S for Star, R for Radio. This promo code will give you £5 free credit to send to Africa on your first transaction. Your money will be delivered to your recipient within seconds. Feel free to call me on 0749 7377 647 at any time. I'll be happy to tell you all about SendWave and help you in any way I can. Remember to use the promo code SR for £5 free credit. Medasse.
Hi everyone, it's your girl BB Clemens, the author of How to Go From Employee to Entrepreneur and the host of your weekly business show, BB Means Business, the show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Star Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
Are you looking for the fastest, reliable, and trustworthy door-to-door shipment company? Well, look no further. When was the last time your family received a shipment back in Ghana on time and intact? You are not sure? Well, Lamb Shippers, we pride ourselves with being the fastest, reliable, and trustworthy shippers you can use. You are assured of a prompt pickup anywhere in the UK by our personnel. They also make sure your items are well packaged to get to its destination intact. When it comes to door-to-door shipment, look no further. Well, Lamb Shippers, contact us on 07939009321 or 07498911820. Or you can visit our website www.welllamp.co.uk. You can also drop us a mail, info@welllamp@gmail.com. Well Lamp Shippers, fast, reliable, and trustworthy.
Hi there. Are you dreaming of owning your own house in Ghana? Then you will need a well-documented piece of land that is free from troubles. I highly recommend My Africa Property for any size of land that you will need. With My Africa Property, lands are available in Prom Prom, Sopoli, Tohenia, Ogome, Dodoma, Winneba, and many other locations at affordable prices. These locations are about an hour away from the airport, only 35 minutes from the motorway, 10 minutes drive from Central University College, 10 minutes drive to the beach, and close to Prum Prum Senior High School and Ghana Men's Soccer Center of Excellence. For more details, visit our website www.myafricaproperty.com or call our UK office on 0208 123 2523. For our US and Canada offices, call us on +1 585 184 994145. You can also email us at ghana@myafricaproperty.com.
Getting onto the property ladder has never been easy until now. Join us this and every Thursday from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. live on the Property Hour Show on Starr Radio UK, where we talk to mortgage brokers, property developers, estate agents, landlord, tenant, property consultants on how to invest or get into the property business and make money. You can't afford to miss this. The Property Hour Show is your best source into the property industry.
Hi guys, this is your friend Uruj from Sendwave. Sendwave is a money transfer app that is used by people all over the world to send money to their loved ones in Africa. With Sendwave, you can send money to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the best part is, Sendwave is absolutely commission free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use Sendwave? Sendwave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store or Google Play Store. The app is free to download. After downloading it, just open the app and enter your name, email, and phone number. That's it. You're good to go. Make sure you use the promo code SR. S for Star, R for Radio. This promo code will give you £5 free credit to send to Africa on your first transaction. Your money will be delivered to your recipient within seconds.
As the world's
Feel free to call
leading
me
solar
on
company.
0749 7377 647 at any time. I'll be happy to tell you all about Sendwave and help you in any way I can. Remember to use the promo code SR for £5 free credit. Vedasse.
Broadcasting live online. Turn it on.
Turn it up.
It's your man. Bekutu, show them you got the Coco set. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Harry Song, aka Mr. Songs. This is the Kingmaker Baba for the girls. We're here. This is Star Radio. Don't go nowhere. UK, London. We they call them London for home. For here, we they call them London. And I sabi you know, just have fun and stay blessed.
Your life coach. And whenever I'm in London, I listen to Starr Radio UK right here. Guess what? You can listen wherever you are.
The coolest way to start your weekend. The best radio show.
Broadcasting worldwide, online 24/7.
In your car.
At work.
At home.
On your smartphone.
This is Starr Radio UK.
Are you ready to turn it up?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Hey there, this is Archie, and it's Starr Radio UK. I'm the morning show.
This is Starr Radio. This is
UK.
Starr Radio
UK.
This is Starr Radio
UK.
Welcome.
Broadcasting worldwide, online 24/7.
Enlighten your day with Starr Radio. people.
Love for you runs deep. All of you makes my heart beat. You make a doubt they fade, Jesus, and that's what makes you great. You hold the world in your hands, the hand that made me who I am. Same God now, yesterday, and forevermore. And that's what makes you great. You are God. You will never change. You remain the same.
Okay, let me say massive good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good dawn to you wherever you might be on planet Earth and those of you on other planets as well. I want to salute each and every one of you and welcome you to Friday edition of the morning show. Today is the first day of December, the year 2023, and let me say it this way: Happy New Month to each and every one of you who tuned in this morning to listen to us. And particularly Ajani Ajala, good morning. He was the first to join us on the Facebook broadcast there. I salute you, Ajani. I hope you are doing very, very, very well. And we thank God Nigeria is not happening to you. But, well, this morning at dawn, we had those of you who wanted to join us on the Power Hour, the prayer session with Reverend Michael Esiama and the Power Word International. We couldn't bring you that live broadcast, so I had to send the feed, share it on our various platforms. Now, interestingly, it was due to the fact that our providers, internet providers, were doing some work, which will be continuing this afternoon. So the program is going to go until 12 o'clock exactly. But wherever you are, don't touch the dial, because we're going to make sure that we bring you everything that you need to know, from archaeology to zoology, from Accra to Zanzibar, with the time that we have on our hands. Let me say good morning to my colleague and co-presenter, Mr. Olayomi Koiki, who will not be joining us this morning. Yes. You know, all this COVID inquiry and everything that is going on, he is going to be going round, some of them trying to prepare the storylines, and then we can post them on our platforms as well. But let me say good morning to my producer, Mr. Francis Gai, who saw to everything, making sure that everything is taken along nicely. Then I'll just loom in and just sit down and just get the program going. And let me say good morning to Angela Dedeji Aziz. Good morning to you. Olakunle, massive good morning. Bishop Adeshina, massive good morning to you and to all your colleagues at the RBS office in Lagos, Nigeria. My brother Felix Kojo D and all you wonderful people here in London, I salute each and every one of you. But I'll say it once again, welcome to the program. I remain yours sincerely, the one and only.
This is the morning show with Archie.
Well, the beginning of the month, the last month of the year, God has been good, hasn't he? But for the grace of God, I tell people all the time, it's not because you are that religious, that's why God kept you. What about those who were even doing evil just a moment ago? Yeah, God still kept them. So it takes the grace of God to be counted amongst the living. So whatever it is, we are grateful to God that he kept us among the living. And as I say it all the time as well, so far as once you are not dead, you are still alive. That means that God has not finished his business that is God to do with you. So keep on keeping on. Yes, keep the faith no matter what has gone on. And I promise you one thing for sure, that you know what, miracles do happen, and they're going to happen to you as well. So welcome on board. Let me say good morning to Mr. John Chabri, CEO of GL Accountancy Services. He will also not be able to join us because of the internet providers' instructions to us, so that they can take over from exactly 12:15. So by 12 o'clock, we'll bring the curtains down for the end of the program. So wherever you are, once again, welcome. Share the broadcast with your friends and loved ones and invite them to like our pages exactly at 10:54. Playing in the background, something from Edith Morrison. What makes you great? Okay, let's move on straight to the program outline. I'm going to bring you the quotes for the day, the weather forecast will follow you, then travel updates, and then we'll go on to look at the updates of the global trotting, and then look at updates from Nigeria and from other parts of the world. I'll be bringing you some music as well, and then at 12 o'clock the curtains are brought down for the end of the program. But I promise you that Monday there's going to be full house and a full Christmas time. Yay! Your Christmas will start from here on Monday. But today, let me say welcome once again. Now the quote for the day says what? It says anyone can be nice to those who are nice, but the person who can be nice to those who aren't will be more blessed by God. How true is that? Now if I'm nice to you and you are being nice to me, that is easy, isn't it? But when I'm being nasty to you and you still continue to be nice to me, that is what it takes to be a believer. Yes. All right then. Okay, so now let's move on straight to the weather forecast before we come to the travel updates. So on the weather forecast this morning for London and the southeast of England, I can tell you that we're going to be experiencing some very nice cold weather. This morning will be cold with plenty of cloud around. In the afternoon, cloud will break up to reveal spells of winter sunshine, mostly dry, but the odd isolated shower cannot be ruled out. This evening will be dry with clear spells. Overnight, thick low cloud, mist and fog will become extensive to leave overcast skies for most, largely dry and cold throughout as well. The temperature is going to be 4 degrees, the lowest is going to be -2, UV level low, pollution low, sunset 15:55, and sunrise for tomorrow morning 07:43 hours. And that brings us to the end of the weather forecast for you today. It is Starr Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Now on the travel this morning as well, those of you using the underground in a very cold weather, but down there, now Central Line has got severe and minor delays. Piccadilly Line has got minor delays. Other side, all the others are running good service. London Overground, DLR and London Tramley, good service there as well. And that takes us straight to the major roads in London. So far so good. All the roads there are no exceptional delays on it apart from the A40 that's got serious delays. Therefore, if you can avoid it, do your best to do so. The Woolwich Ferry has also got reduced service, and the London Cable Car, good service there. But this brings us straight to the final segment of the travel update. That is the National Rail this morning. That has got loads there. But let's start it this way. C2C special service, Cheltenham Railway special service, Great Northern special service, ScotRail special service, and then we got Southern and Thameslink special service there as well. But when it comes to other lines as well, Avanti West Coast has got minor delays, Cross Country minor delays, First Transparent Express minor delays, Gatwick Express no service. Now Great Western Railway minor delays, London North Eastern Railway minor delays, Northern Rail minor delays, Southwestern Railway minor delays, and Southeastern minor delays as well. That aside, all the others are running a good service. And that is where I bring the update to a close. And I put it this way: good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good dawn to you, wherever you might be on planet Earth. Enjoy your comment for today. But you know what? Continue to keep those eyes where? On the roads.
Hi guys, this is your friend Ruth from Sendwave. Sendwave is a money transfer app that is used by people all over the world to send money to their loved ones in Africa. With Sendwave, you can send money to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the best part is, Sendwave is absolutely commission free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use Sendwave? Sendwave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store or Google Play Store. The app is free to download. After downloading it, just open the app and enter your name, email, and phone number. That's it, you're good to go. Make sure you use the promo code SR. S for Starr, R for Radio. This promo code will give you £5 free credit to send to Africa on your first transaction. Your money will be delivered to your recipient within seconds.
I used to work 9 to 5.
Feel free to call me on 0749737777 at any time. I'll be happy to tell you all about Sendwave and help you in any way I can. Remember to use the promo code SR for £5 free credit.
When it comes to becoming wealthy, I'm sure you've figured out that the odds are pretty much stacked against you. If you work for a company,
everywhere you go, Afrobeat reggae dancehall taking over.
There's only so much money.
Everywhere you go, Afrobeat reggae dancehall taking over. Yo, what's up, people? This is a boy Raskin Bobo One. Tune in every day, every night at the Star Radio UK with the big man them Archie. When I say Orta, you say fire.
Welcome back to the program, Star Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London, bringing the time now to 11 o'clock exactly, and we are going global trotting. As I did say, yes, it's an hour's program. I suppose about an hour and a half, and those of you who enjoyed all the news that we're bringing your way from the BBC as well, we say thank you very much for joining in. But now we are going moving on. So wherever you are, just stay tuned. Don't touch the dial. Star Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. All right. So we move on straight. Yes, what's happening? Now, in Nigeria this morning, as I did say, because Yomi is not going to be able to join us due to updates or tidying up the loose ends of some of the stories that we've done during the course of the week. Is working on that one, so he will not be able to join us this morning. But wherever you are, I hope you're going to be enjoying the program. But these are some of the stories that has made the rounds this morning. Immigration to open more passport services points in the UK, US, and other places. Well, you look at the fact that people are going to the Nigerian High Commission and then have to be queuing outside. Can you just imagine this time that the weather is cold? And then in the Ghanaian High Commission here, we did make lots of noise, and now they have a place where you come in to come and sit down, a big hall where people can come in and sit down. I think it's about time that Nigeria does that for its citizens. And again, opening other branches for immigration purposes, passports and all that stuff, I think that would be a good one for all of us. Okay, and then in other stories as well, military helicopter crashes in Port Harcourt. Now stop power theft, vandalism to boost electricity supply, power minister is saying. And then Kano APC accuses NNPP of stage managing protests against court ruling. And Zenith Bank signs MOU with CFA Institute for Human Capital Development. One of the stories making the rounds as well. In Dubai, Tinubu Palace with King Charles ahead of the 2028 COP28 summit. My apologies. Now, gunmen attack INEC commissioners' residence in Kogi State. It's one of their stories. Why have they? We'll be bringing you more on that front as well. So wherever you are, don't touch the dial. Missing 43 billion naira revenue. Reps threaten to issue arrest warrant on Nama boss. We're going to be looking at all those in a moment, but now let's move on to other stories making the rounds this morning. Now, in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia family creates woodland oasis. It's one of the stories making the rounds there as well. And the Kenya spearheads malaria vaccine triumph. It's one of the stories there. But let me bring you everything I need to know. Top Madagascar court confirms Rajoelina's re-election as president. Of course they will do so. What do you reckon? Now, Martin Fayulu challenges Felix Tshisekedi's leadership in Goma campaign rally. But with him wielding all the power and everything, do you think there's going to be anything different there? Okay, and the ECOWAS summit is scheduled for December 10 in Abuja. What are they going to be thinking about? What are they going to be talking about? How to loot some more money from the states, or what are they going to be doing? Well, Hamas ready to exchange. Okay, 17-year-old Ugandan woman gives birth to twins. By what means? 70-year-old? Oh boy. Well, and Kenya's President William Ruto's favorite outfit, Kawunda suit, banned in Parliament. Well, those are some of the stories making the rounds. We don't want ours, we want that of others, right? Somebody say right. Okay. Now, let's move on to some other stories making the rounds this morning as well. Allah's resignation hurts me. Cabinet Japan is saying that is pertaining to one of the flag bearers, one of the candidates for the flag bearership of the NPP. It is unnecessary for Parliament to reject the 2024 budget. That is what the finance minister is saying. Why is it unnecessary? Yeah, if they think that, well, whatever you put in there is not what is going to benefit the state, then what do you think? Bagwin declares 2024 budget not approved. Okay, so that's why the
I was going to the Chancellor. The Finance Minister is also making that statement. But it is all coming away from Starr Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. In other parts of the world as well. Well, Israel has resumed strikes in Gaza after ceasefire ends. The Hamas-run health ministry says dozens have been killed since fighting resumed as rockets also fired at southern Israel. Now, released Palestinian alleged abuse in Israeli jails. Okay. Blinken step-up call for Israel to spare civilians. What U.S. agent knew before a Sikh separatist was killed. A fourth murder plot in the U.S. has linked to a case which sparked Canada's diplomatic row with India. So has the state got something to do with that? And Ukraine must speed up fortifying front. That's what Zelensky is saying. So what do they need? They need some more stuff from the Western block. What do you think? Well, more going to be coming your way. And then heavy gunfire ahead in Guinea-Bissau's capital. That is another story that is making the rounds this morning. It just come through a couple of hours ago. I'm going to be looking at all that in a moment. When it comes to the UK front as well, dangers of climate change are no longer distant risks. King tells COP22. The UK monarch urged world leaders to make their COP28 climate summit in Dubai a turning point. Can they? Will they? That is the question. And Royal Race Row naming not publicity stunt after is saying, but apparently they're naming King Charles and the Duchess of Wales. Oh no, a Princess of Wales as ones who were asking that. But let me ask you this. Forget about whatever side that you find yourself on. Now, if with my color now, okay. Now I don't know whether the camera depicts my real color. It doesn't. I'm a bit fair. Okay, slightly fairer. Okay. Now, so if I go marry a mixed race person and somebody asks me or asks us, what color will the child be? How will you take it? How will you take it? Is it that the person is, trying to, be racist? Or is it that the person is trying to, just out of curiosity, what do you think the color is going to be? I wanted to share your take with me because it's quite interesting what is going on with all this. Because if Harry is white, okay, we have Meghan who is mixed race, and both of them are together, they are going to give birth, and the person is saying, what do you think the color of the person? It's not, the person is not saying that is your color going to be as black as, but he's looking at the percentages of whatever is in there and thinking what the color is going to be. You see them, they are nothing close to anything like black. No. So I don't get it. I don't really get what is going on, but I want to have your take on that. Let me know what you really think about that as the race row goes on. Snow and ice across UK as big freeze forecast. Thursday was the coldest night in the UK since mid-March, with temperatures as low as minus 9.4. And let me say good morning to my brother Felix once again. He braces himself, so he knows how to deal with that. Even in the cold weather, you see him cycling down the street. So he does very well. It's fate, Felix, massive good morning to you and to the family there as well. Matt Hancock at COVID inquiry after saying toxic culture hit pandemic response. Did care home fail to get PPE due to NHS need? Well, some of the story. Hancock pressed on discharging patients to care homes, but he's allegedly saying that, well, you know what? If we had shut down the country about 3 weeks earlier, I don't think we will be seeing the speed of death that we saw. Now, yesterday, in the evening as well, information came through that Alistair Darling, former Chancellor of the Exchequer, has also passed. They said he died from cancer as well. I remember him. My big brother would tell me that he likes the man. Back in the day, that was about 2000 thereabout. He said he's got dark eyebrows, and his hair is white or gray. And I was like, yeah, does he paint his eyebrows? Well, interesting. But yeah, he was one of a kind. He was a politician. He did well for, I remember when the campaign against Scotland breaking away from the UK. He was one of the one who were against that. Okay, they were for remaining, himself and his boss at the time, his former boss, that is Gordon Brown. But well, so he's passed, and we say may his soul rest in perfect peace, and as many who has passed. Yeah, that's why I say that it is the grace of God that has kept us. But what do you think? Maybe you think that you did very well. That is why God spared you. But well, some people did very or better than you are, and are no more. So what about that? House prices edge up as hopes rise of lower rates. The Nationwide says there are encouraging signs that mortgage rates are starting to come down. Now, 4 officers hurt in violence before Villa match. Now, police make 39 arrests after clashing with Liga Warsaw fans outside Aston Villa's stadium. Now, I don't know this football hooliganism and all that thing that comes with it. But whatever it is Starr Radio UK. I'm going to bring you more on that front. But now, let's enjoy some music. Let me have a sip of some hot tea to keep myself warm here. Stay tuned. Don't touch the dial. This is The Goodness of God, the reggae version from Christopher Martin. Enjoy it, and I'll be with you.
I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hand. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. So good, yes. Every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. You know I love your voice, for you have led me through the fire in darkest night. You are close like no other. You know I've known you as a father. You know I've known you as a friend. And I have believed in the goodness of God. Oh, yeah. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good.
This is Starr Radio UK.
Oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Ooh, yeah. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything, oh Lord. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Come and we sing it again. Your goodness is running after, oh no 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 no, after me, running me down. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Oh, your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Oh, all my life you have been faithful. All my life you've been faithful to me. All my life you have been so good to me, Lord. Every breath that I
This is Starr Radio UK.
Of the goodness of God. Oh, I will sing of the goodness of God.
This is Starr Radio UK.
Of the goodness of God. You know I sing for you, Jesus. You know I sing for you, Lord.
Getting onto the property ladder has never been easy until now. Join us this and every Thursday from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. live on the Property Hour Show on Starr Radio UK, where we talk to mortgage brokers, property developers, estate agents, landlord, tenant, property consultants on how to invest or get into the property business and make money. You can't afford to miss this. The Property Hour Show is your best source into the property industry.
You are listening to Starr Radio Morning Show. Enlighten your day with Starr Radio.
Welcome to the program Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. I bring the time down to 11:15, and we are going straight into some of the stories making the rounds in Nigeria today. Okay. But share the broadcast with your friends and loved ones and invite them to like our pages. As I've said, it's a very, very special program. And those of you, once again, who missed out on the early morning prayer time, that's the Power Hour from by the Power Word International and Reverend Michael Esiama. I sincerely apologize. It was due to situation or events out of our control. But now we're going to be looking at some of the stories. But as I did say, they are going to do some further work, which means that we have to finish the program at 12 o'clock, a very special one. And again, we're not going to be having Mr. Danterbury, CEO of GI Accountancy Services. He's promised me that next week, for sure, he's going to be in. But due to this program, the program that the work update work that is going to be going on by the internet providers this morning or this afternoon, let me put it that way. We will have to share his program so that come next week Friday he will be on. He will be looking at the Chancellor of the Exchequer's mid-budget statement that he made last week. Okay. So now let's move on. Let's move on to some of the stories making the rounds from Nigeria this morning. Now let's start it from this place. Now, missing for 43 billion naira revenue, reps threatened to issue arrest warrant on Nama boss. The House of Representatives on Wednesday threatened to issue an arrest warrant against the Managing Director of Nigeria Airspace Management Agency, NAMA, Mohammed Odunowo, next Monday over missing 43 billion naira revenue accruing from sales of both local and international air tickets between 2021 and 2022. I think that snake had swallowed that money. Yeah, the chairman, House of Committee on Finance, Honorable Abiodun James Faleke, issued a threat notice during the resumed hearing in Abuja, frowned at the level of disrespect for the parliament. Worried by the NAMA helmsman's refusal to honor the two invitations sent to him by the committee, Faleke said, when we did the calculation, I recall that we recorded about 43 billion naira deficit. And of course, the NCAA said they do not agree with the number provided by FAAN, the data, whatever, that it couldn't have been up to that. But what is it? Come and answer the question. Come and tell us. Come and throw more light on it. And he says, I don't want to go. And Fan said that this was not generated by them, but generated by NAMA. And there's a record. The ADR 16 that generates that. So we asked them to come back with NAMA and with specific data from the ADR 16. And today we have NCAA before us. Unfortunately, NAMA is not here. I don't know why this is the second time. The next time we are going to issue a warrant of arrest on NAMA. If he fails to appear before us on Monday will issue warrant of arrest on Nama boss, he ruled. After grilling the NCAA delegation, the committee asked the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, and the Accountant General of the Federation to provide details of all the accounts being operated by the Nigerian Airspace Management Agency, NAMA. Now, this is how they do ransack our monies. But that's a sad one, right? Okay. Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Now moving on straight to some other stories as well. Immigration to open more passport services in UK, US and others. Comptroller General in Nigeria Immigration Service, Mrs. Caroline Adepoju, has said the service will open more passport service points to meet the needs of Nigerians in the diaspora. Adepoju said in an interview with the news agency on Friday in Abuja that efforts were on to ease passport processing in the country. I have it on good authority that in the UK we have over 4 million Nigerians, and this number increases every day because of the Japa syndrome. Now, families that relocated, students, and those in search of greener pastures and jobs. So all hands are on deck to ensure that we create more service points in the UK, Canada, and the USA. We listen to the plight of our nationals. We hear their cries. We are working hard, and by the grace of God, we will get there, she said. Adepoju said the service had opened 3 additional passport processing centers in Nigeria located at Ikorodu, Offa, and Ile Oloji to ease demands on passport centers in Lagos, Kwara, and Ondo states. Now, more are coming. We are going to Ibadan, Badagry. We will look at everywhere we have a high volume of application. I want Nigerians to continue to support me, understand and be aware that they owe us the duty of ensuring that they apply for their passport when it is about 6 months before the expiry date. That will ease the pressure on them and the system. So if everybody decide that 6 months to the expiry, they try to renew, what changes would that bring? Well, if you are listening to us, what do you think about that promise? Do you think it's good enough? Let us know. Now, another information coming through says that, a Nigerian Air Force helicopter on Friday, that this morning, crash landed and exploded at the NAV base, Port Harcourt. The NAV, Nigeria Air Force Director of Public Relations and Information, Air Commodore Edward Backwet, confirmed the incident in a statement. The statement read, a Nigerian Air Force MI-35P helicopter has crashed at Port Harcourt today, December 1, 2023. The unfortunate incident occurred at about 7:45 a.m. shortly after the aircraft took off for an operation against economic saboteurs in River State. Fortunately, the entire crew of 5 survived the crash with very minor injuries and are currently being attended to at a NAV Medical Center in Port Harcourt. The Chief of Air Staff is currently en route to Port Harcourt to assess the situation for himself, see to the well-being of the crew, and give further directives. An incident of this nature is yet again a grim reminder of the dangers associated with military flying and the risk of NAV pilots and technicians experience in their onerous task defending our nation and deterring criminal elements from their nefarious activities. Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Stop power theft, vandalism to boost electricity supply, the Power Minister has said. The Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, has called for an end to power theft, vandalism of electricity installations and sabotage of the sector. Who do you think are perpetrating that act? Because as we all know, the poor man knows that, if he can get power from the national grid, it will cost him less. Now he's not getting that. He has to go and buy I pass my neighbor and put petrol or diesel in there, and it costs the person a lot. Well, Chief Adebayo, who made this call in Abuja yesterday while declaring open the 2023 Power Correspondent Association of Nigeria (CAN) annual workshop, said that that will enable the sector to make progress. This is as the minister said, the Electricity Act 2023 is a cornerstone for energy efficiency in Nigeria. Now, another grammar there, we will want to see actions. Now, represented by the Director of Training Transmission, Mr. Nosike Emmanuel, the minister noted that a key part of the 2023 Electricity Act is the development of the Integrated National Electricity Policy and Strategic Implementation Plan. Now, for the sector to progress, we must advocate against power theft, vandalism, and educate consumers against sabotage, he said. Now, the Labour said they are working with the National Council on Power to develop and send the implementation strategy to the Federal Executive Council, the FEC, for approval. So let's see what comes out of that. But it's all coming away from Starr Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. 11:25 the time, and we're bringing you all the necessary updates that you need to know this morning for the weekend. Now, some unknown gunmen have attacked the residence of Kogi State Resident Electoral Commissioner. The attack, which took place in the early hours of Friday, left properties destroyed, but no lives were lost. This is contained in a statement by Rotimi Oyekami, the Chief Press Secretary of the INEC Chairman, Mahmoud Yakubu. Mr. Oyekami said security personnel engaged the gunmen in a gun battle for over 30 minutes. In the early hours of today, that the 1st of December 2023, around 3:30 a.m., gunmen attacked the residence of our resident electoral commissioner in Lokoja, Kogi State. The armed men engaged the security personnel in a gun battle for over 30 minutes until reinforcement arrived. While no lives were lost, property was destroyed in the ensuing gun battle. He added that a team of combined security personnel have been deployed to protect the residents. The commission therefore called for a thorough investigation and enhanced security protection for its personnel and assets in Kogi State. The Kogi election was one of the three off-cycle governorship elections held on November 11. They were the first election conducted by the Electoral Commission since the disputed 2023 general election. While the PDP candidate won in Bayelsa State, the All Progressive Congress candidate won in Imo and Kogi States. Although the Kogi election that returned the candidate of the ruling APC, Osman Odudo, as the winner was more peaceful than expected, the state of calmness in the state appears to be taking a new turn. On Thursday, a mob besieged the INEC Lokoja office, preventing lawyers of political parties involved in the election from inspecting documents and materials used in the election. INEC said it took the intervention of the Nigerian Army to calm Thursday's situation. In its election observation reports shortly after the election, the civil society organization Situation Room said INEC performance was subpar and described the election as a setback for Nigeria's democracy. Noting reports of results falsification and logistical challenges, the organization said INEC did not show that it had learned from the mistakes of the past. Well, I can see a burnt out vehicle, and I don't know what else, but at least life was not lost, and so I would say a good one there. Well, but the Nigerian Immigration Service has deployed e-gates to airports for better migration management. What do you think about that? That's quite an interesting one. You get in there, zoom through it like no man business. So you just take your electronic passport, pass through, and then you are out. You are gone, right? Let's see if it will not be tampered. But well, listeners, 11:29. Let's take commercial, and then we come back. I take you to other parts of the world, and we look at what is happening there as well. Stay tuned. Don't you go away.
Hi guys, this is your friend Uruj from SendWave. SendWave is a money transfer app that is used by people all over the world to send money to their loved ones in Africa. With SendWave, you can send money to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the best part is, SendWave is absolutely commission free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use SendWave? SendWave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store or Google Play Store. The app is free to download. After downloading it, just open the app and enter your name, email, and phone number. That's it. You're good to go. Make sure you use the promo code SR. S for Star, R for Radio. This promo code will give you £5 free credit to send to Africa on your first transaction. Your money will be delivered to your recipient within seconds. Feel free to call me on 0749 7377 647 at any time. I'll be happy to tell you all about SendWave and help you in any way I can. Remember to use the promo code SR for £5 free credit. Medase.
Hi everyone, it's your girl BB Clemens, the author of How to Go From Employee to Entrepreneur and the host of your weekly business show, BB Means Business. The show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Starr Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
Welcome back to the program Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. I'm bringing the time now to exactly 11:31, and we are moving on. I'm trying to line up a nice Christmas tune, the first for this time of the year. So just bear with me. I will see to do that. In a moment. I think they did that, and we have the Nigeria Armed Forces also doing theirs as well. But don't you worry, I'm going to bring you everything that you got to know when it comes to that as well. It is Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. It's going to be our first for the year. And I promise you there's going to be lots more from next week.
Don't wait any longer to prepare for the cold weather now with this ultimate heater.
Lots of Christmas tunes coming your way to get you into the mood. All right. So now let's move on to some other stories making the rounds this morning, and this time around pertaining to other parts of the world. On other parts of the world, that is still on the African continent, top Madagascar court has confirmed Rajoelina's re-election as president. I don't know how their constitution works, but Madagascar's Constitutional Court has confirmed President Andry Rajoelina's re-election after a contentious vote 2 weeks ago. Rajoelina secured 59% of the votes, securing a third term. The court dismissed opposition complaints about vote credibility, despite a low of 46% turnout and most opposition parties boycotting. The head of the Constitutional Court, Florent Rakotorizoa, stated Andry Rajoelina is elected as the president of the Republic of Madagascar. 10 out of 13 contenders withdrew, expressing concerns about election credibility and urging supporters not to vote. The court rejected attempts to annul Rajoelina's bid. The president's two main rivals, sitting let me leave the other rest, and ex-president Mark Ravalomanana received 14 and 12% of the votes, respectively. The election was marked by protests and clashes with opposition accusing Rajoelina of unfair electoral conditions. When has an election gone on in Africa and it's been a perfect or a good one? It never does it? Yeah. Okay, in other stories as well. Election. In a press conference held in Bukavu on Wednesday, November 29, Dr. Denis Mukwege, the renowned activist of the Nobel laureate, declared his commitment to repairing and healing the Democratic Republic of Congo comprehensively. Presenting himself as the candidate of the people, Mukwege outlined his societal project aimed at alleviating the suffering of a population enduring over 30 years of turmoil. His vision comprises 12 pillars, including environmental safety, housing security, journalist protection, economic stability, and judicial security. Dr. Mukwege, a presidential candidate in the upcoming December 20 election, emphasized ending ongoing war as his top priority. He's metaphorically illustrated his commitment as the tree of peace, with roots representing security and defense, the trunk symbolizing a program to provide employment and sustenance for all, and 12 branches signifying essential securities for the populace to lead normal lives in a democratic nation. Undeterred by political pressures, Mukwege reiterated his dedication to the cause, emphasizing that peace is the foundational element for progress. Addressing the urgent need for peace in Congo, he highlighted the necessity for employment to meet basic needs, expressing optimism that collaboration with supportive lawmakers could address issues such as corruption and legal insecurity. And it's all coming your way. So we're waiting for the 20th. Yes, that is 19 days time when that election is going to be taking place. How do you think, and what do you think? Okay, for nearly 2 hours, Fayulu, often referred to by his supporters as elected president. There's another candidate, Martin Fayulu, who is also vying for the presidency or contesting for the 20th December election in the DRC. So we'll see what happens on that front as well. But it's all coming your way from Starr Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Another story that is developing: the next summit of the Economic Community of West African States in crisis after a series of recent military coups will take place on December 10 in Abuja. The Cote d'Ivoire presidency announced on Thursday. The next ordinary summit of ECOWAS will take place on December 10 in Abuja, the Nigerian capital, according to a press release issued by the presidency following a meeting in Abidjan on Wednesday between Ivorian head of state Alassane Ouattara and the president of the Regional Organization Commission, Omar Aliou Touare. The last summit took place at the beginning of August and was entirely devoted to the situation in Niger following the military coup of July 26 that overthrew the elected president Mohamed Bazoum, who has since been sequestered in his residence in Niamey. The heads of states had threatened military intervention to restore President Bazoum to office and impose heavy economic and financial sanctions on Niger. Ruled by a military regime led by General Abdurrahman Tiani, I wouldn't say we've given up the military options. We have suspended it while waiting for the sanctions to produce results, said Abdel Fattah Musa, ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, in an interview published yesterday. Now, regarding the 3-year transition period put forward by General Tiani before a return to constitutional order, he felt that many things are negotiable, but under no circumstance will we accept a 3-year transition. In any case, dialogue has broken down for the time being. We have tried to meet the Niger leaders and talk to them. They refuse, he added. Well, they are also saying that you want us to talk, release or remove the sanctions from us, and we are ready to talk. 11:38 the time. Starr Radio UK, the station. Just 22 minutes to bring the program to a close. As I just say, we have Mr. Dantebury who will not be able to join us due to the fact that we have providers who need to do some work, internet providers who need to do some work here as well. Okay, now let's move on straight to other parts of Africa as well. Now, yesterday information was coming through pertaining to a move by the what do you call him, the Speaker of Parliament in Ghana, who was allegedly saying that, during the I think the ayes have it, and then was approving, and then they said, no, we want a head count. That's a minority saying that, and then there was a move and a shake and everything, and now he came out to say that, well, I've not approved the budget there. However, the Minister for Finance and Economic Planning, Mr. Oforiatta, the Finance Minister, Kenneth Oforiatta, has described as unnecessary intervention the decision by Parliament to approve or reject a budget statement. The Speaker of Parliament, Adman Babgan, on Wednesday was consequently compelled to suspend sitting and later take an adjournment due to that disorder in the House after the majority in Parliament has staged a walkout over approval of the 2024 budget. By reacting to yesterday's development on the sidelines of the Ghana Capital Markets Conference, Kenneth Oforiatta, who yesterday insisted to the best of his knowledge the budget was passed, has questioned why such drama must characterize the passage of the budget. He argues disagreements over approval or otherwise should be centered on issues around appropriation and not the budget statement. In a quote, he said, "I'm not sure there should be a need for Parliament's approval for the principles and objectives of the budget, because truly there is appropriation where then you can get to estimate and nitty-gritties of that. I mean, you will be against a budget that there is macro stability and that there is relief for the people of Ghana and there is growth. I am not sure anybody will be against that." It goes on further to say, so maybe it is unnecessary to mention there is to get the issue of appropriation and estimate as to where the judgment should come, because I think what we have now should not necessarily be. That is what Mr. Kenneth Oforiatta, that is the finance minister, did say on in Ghana pertaining to waiting for the budget approval by Parliament. Well, he said, look at the nitty-gritty and the salient points and not the budget as a whole, because it's something that is going to help the people. But listeners, this is Starr Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Bringing the time now to 11:42, 18 minutes. But let me bring you this one quickly, and then we'll move on from there. The former General Secretary of the governing New Patriotic Party, Kwabena Ejepong, has disclosed that Mr. Alan Kyerematen's resignation from the New Patriotic Party hurts him. Speaking yesterday, Mr. Ejepong indicated that irrespective of the circumstances, Mr. Kyerematen should not have resigned from the NPP. He is more than a friend. He is like a big brother to me. We've been together since childhood, but on this score, I disagree with him because he has been part of us in building this party together. So I don't think that after spending 30 years of your life in more than that, especially for a political tradition that provided you a platform to be a Minister of Trade for cumulatively close to 12 years, not many people got those opportunities. Whatever happened, I think he should have stayed. So I was very hurt. I think we have spoken once, but we haven't met. I've called him. He has also called, and it's tough because I am not in tune with what he did, Mr. Ejepong stated. According to him, he cannot fathom the kind of advice that could make Mr. Kyerematen to leave the NPP despite the challenges. I mean, I don't know what kind of advice will let him leave this political tradition in life. You've got to deal with the highs and the lows, Mr. Ejepong said. Listeners, it is Starr Radio UK, 11:43 the time, so another 70 minutes, but let's go to other parts of the world as well. Okay, let me touch on some of the salient points or stories that is making the rounds, and this pertains to a banter between the Canadian authorities and the Indian authorities there. U.S. prosecutors have charged an Indian man with a plot to kill at least 6 separatists in Northern America. The indictment links the case to the murder of a Canadian citizen earlier this year and has prompted questions about what U.S. agents knew in the days before his death. On June 18, Nikhil Gupta watched a video of a Sikh separatist leader who had been shot dead in Canada in his car. His bloody body slumped over the steering wheel. Mr. Gupta then forwarded the video to a man he is accused of hearing as a hitman for another murder in a different country on the phone. That the next day, Mr. Gupta told the man that the Canadian activists, had been a target, number 4, number 3, and a list. Now we have so many targets, Mr. Gupta said. The good news is this: now no need to wait. Those alleged conversations were outlined in an indictment unsealed by U.S. prosecutors on Wednesday. The U.S. Justice Department has charged Mr. Gupta with an elaborate plot to assassinate a dual U.S.-Canadian citizen based in New York, a plot allegedly directed by an Indian government employee. While the target was not named by prosecutors, U.S. media reported it was Guptwant Singh Panum, a dual U.S. and Canada citizen, a member of the U.S.-based Sikh separatist group. This particular scheme was thwarted. The hitman in New York, who Mr. Gupta allegedly agreed to pay $100,000, in fact, an undercover agent. By the 15-page charging documents also provided new details on the attack that did succeed, the fatal shooting of Hardeep Singh Niger and in British Columbia. These details raise fresh questions about the murder on Canadian soil, about who knew what and when. Let me say good morning to all my friends, the Sikhs. I've got friends who are Sikhs, I've got friends who are Buddhists and all that stuff. You know, we need peace, don't we? Okay. But again, I ask myself the question, why have they given them the chance to also maybe go for a referendum, see whether they can form a majority and wherever area that they want, their people want out? Because some say unity is strength. So if maybe they are vying for that, you could say that, that cannot happen. Let me say good morning once again to Anthony Adedeji. Hey, how are you doing, sir? I hope you are doing very, 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 very well. And happy new month to you. And may you enjoy or have a very wonderful weekend as we try to look at some of the other stories before we bring the program to a close, to make way for the providers to do whatever they want to do. Okay. In Ukraine as well, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said differences must be quickly beefed up. My apologies, let me take it again. Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said defenses must be quickly beefed up across the front line after meeting commanders in some of the main pressure points in the south and east. In all major sectors where reinforcement is needed, speed up building of structures, he said in his nightly address. Russian forces are trying to encircle the eastern town of Advika, and they are targeting the southern regions of Kherson and Zaporizhia. Overnight, Ukraine's Air Force said it had shot down 18 out of 25 Russian drones and 1 of 2 cruise missiles. Now, with temperatures falling below freezing and Ukraine cloaked with snow, President Zelensky said winter as a whole is a new phase of war. The Ukrainian leader said maximum attention will be paid to eastern towns coming under fire in Donetsk region, as well as the key defensive line in the northeast between Kupiansk and Lyman. Listeners, this is Starr Radio UK, and this is the Friday edition of the morning show. We're looking at other stories making the rounds in other parts of the world. Now, before we come to the UK and then we run out from there, fighting has resumed in Gaza after the 7-day temporary ceasefire between Israel and Hamas expired. Now, both sides have blamed each other for the violence restarting after a week in which more than 100 hostages were released by Hamas in exchange for 240 Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. The Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza says dozens of people have been killed since the Israeli bombardment resumed. Now, reporters in southern Israel says rockets have been seen being fired to and from Gaza this morning. The Israeli military has dropped leaflets warning residents of Khan Yunis, a southern city, to flee further south for their safety. Earlier, the U.S. warned Israel that the massive loss of civilian lives seen in northern Gaza should not be repeated in the south. Hamas attacks on Israel on 7th October killed 1,200 people, with around 240 others taken hostage. Since then, Gaza Hamas-run health ministry says more than 14,800 people have been killed in Israel's retaliatory attacks there. It's all coming your way from Starr Radio UK. Let's move on now to this part of the world, that is the UK front, and look at some of the stories making their rounds. Now, football hooliganism. Now, Aston Villa fans said all hell broke loose before the European fixtures with Legia Warsaw. Now, 4 police officers were hurt during the clashes with visiting fans, with one suffering concussions when struck by a flare as they were thrown at officers. Now, police faced 90 minutes of sustained violence, the force said. Home fans also reported missiles being hurled into the stadium in Birmingham. Now, from outside the ground, as police stopped the away fans from entering. One of the injured officers sent by West Mercia Police to support the West Midlands force suffered concussion and inhaled smoke after a flare caught on her clothing. The Forces Police Federation has said. West Midlands Police said 46 people were in custody. Villa fans said that VM he had been walking to the ground ahead of the game and had just reached the North Stand car park when literally all hell broke loose. Now, what brings about this? It's not like they played the match and then you say, oh, maybe VAR or maybe the referee has done something or has said something that is not satisfactory to you, and therefore they think that, oh, let's do something about it. Nothing of the sort. But what do you think? Well. The COP28 has kick-started, and we have King Charles III, who has made his statement there as well. The UK's King Charles III urged world leaders gathered in Dubai to make the COP28 climate summit a turning point. The monarch warned that despite some progress, we remain so dreadfully far off track. He called for genuine transformational actions a day after the meeting opened with stark warnings on global warming. Now, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says world leaders cannot save a burning planet with a fire hose of fossil fuels. Meanwhile, UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan announces $30 billion or £23 billion fund for global climate solution. It follows an unexpected early agreement on Thursday. Countries committed to $420 million to a fund for nations suffering the effects of climate change. Greenhouse gas emissions causing the earth to heat up are still rising, but scientists say they must be nearly halved in the next 7 years or else. So if these monies are going to be paid out to countries that are suffering or at the receiving end of the climate issue that is going on, what do you think the leaders, let's say Ghana, let's say Nigeria, what are they going to give, how are they going to share that money? What are they going to be using it for? Are they going to build houses that are on stands? Or what exactly are they going to be doing? It's quite an interesting one, right? Yeah. My listeners, this is what coming your way from Starr Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. But the king is not just quietly enjoying his peace of mind. However, there is this race row thing that is going on. An author whose book triggered a row over allegations of racism within the royal family has said the naming of two people in one edition was not a deliberate publicity stunt. Koiki said he did not know how a Dutch translation of Endgame came to include the names of King Charles and Catherine, Princess of Wales. They are reported to have allegedly discussed the skin color of the Duke and the Duchess of Sussex unborn baby. Now, Koiki insists the naming was an error. From where? Now, full investigation was underway to discover how the names were included, adding the English version of the book I wrote, the book I edited, didn't have names in it. So if I give something to you that's not got all those bits, and then you are translating it, how come that's a sentence now translates into something that pertains to what have happened or what did happen there? It's quite an interesting one, isn't it? But listeners, this is all coming your way from Starr Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Now, one final story, and then we bring the program to a close. I'll bring you my lovely tune that I've selected this morning. The first Christmas tune that I'm going to be bringing your way. Okay. Today being the 1st of December 2023. Thank God we are still alive, well and kicking. As I did say earlier on, the death was announced of Alistair Darling, who passed yesterday, and from fight against, after he lost his fight against cancer. May his soul rest in perfect peace. But the final story comes from where Matt Hancock says school closures could have been avoided in January 2021 if the government had acted more swiftly in spiraling COVID cases. It says a COVID inquiry that he argued introducing restrictions later will mean a tougher lockdown with more economic damage. Elsewhere, he says he was in despair when the government announced a tier system in England which it knew will not work. He says this was because local politicians were under significant pressure not to accept the measures. Now, Hancock also accepts the kissing and an aid may have impacted the public's confidence in COVID rules. Yesterday, he said that entering lockdown 3 weeks earlier would or could have cut deaths in the first COVID wave by 90%. Now, Hancock, who was health secretary throughout the pandemic until he resigned in 2021, defended his department against criticism from previous witnesses. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, this is where I bring the program to a close for today. But as I said, Yomi is there reporting everything, and God willing, Monday he'll be telling you more about all that has gone on. But let me put it this way: thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure coming your way. And I wish you all a lovely weekend. And I'll see you all on Monday. It's been me, your one and only Archie, saying bye-bye for now. But now, let's take this tune from the Trinidad Armed Forces with their Christmas carol. Enjoy it. And when that song ends, you don't hear from me. It's been me, Archie. And I say, have a lovely weekend. May Nigeria not happen to you, as we say on this platform. Bye-bye for now.
This is Christmas, and what have you done?
Thanks for listening.
And a new one's just begun. And so this is Christmas. I hope you have fun. And year after year on, beyond and beyond. A very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Let's go. And so this is Christmas, yeah. Tell me why.